Hello and welcome to another screencast, this time in personality. Again, for these PowerPoints, reminder, the yellow text boxes are tasks for students, the green text boxes are student note-taking, the blue text boxes are the differentiation tasks, and the red text boxes are for the practitioners, the teaching and learning strategies and ideas that you might come up with for this topic. So, what do you need to know about personality for your GCSE? Well, you need to be able to understand the characteristics of personality types. So they include introvert and extrovert. So you need to be able to explain clearly what those two personality types mean. And then you need to be able to apply them to the sports and sporting settings. Okay, so which personality type suits which sport, okay, and ultimately perhaps why that is the case as well. Okay, so let's get going. All right, so let's look at personality first and foremost as a concept. So why do we need to know about personality in sport? Because ultimately our personality can affect the choice of sports that we take up, and ultimately can also impact in regards to performance. When we think of personality, we think of the way that we're kind of designed, the way that we're made up. Okay, so key characteristics that kind of can determine how we behave perhaps in a certain situation. And these are the characteristics that determine the differences between all of us, because all of us will have different personality traits, and ultimately they will be the difference between each individual human being. When we talk about a trait, we're talking about the fact that this is a characteristic, it's a quality that belongs to a specific person. So your first task is pause the video here. Can you describe your own personality, any personality traits, any characteristics that you have, okay, with 10 key words? Okay, so hopefully you've finished that now. Another task for you perhaps to do, you could use Anthony Joshua as an example if you want, or any other sporting athlete of your choice. Now, you probably don't know them personally, but you will have been able to see them probably in the media or them perform in their sport. Again, can you now try and describe them and what their personality is probably like in 10 key words? Okay, so hopefully you finished both of those tasks. Hopefully you've got lots of different words. When we go through this in class, we'll go through the different traits that you've come up with for either yourself or for your sports person. All right, so let's look at this first personality type of introvert. When we talk about an introvert, we're talking about someone that is generally quite quiet, they're quite passive, okay, they're quite reserved, and they normally have quite a shy personality type. And that normally associates most introverts with individual sports. Okay, so that's really something to bear in mind. When we talk about introverts, we're normally talking about the fact that they're most suited to individual sports. These are people that tend not to need a high level of arousal. So in order to compete or perform, they don't need that high level of alertness or readiness. Okay, they're generally quite a calm individual, and therefore that those individual tasks may suit them better. Can become over aroused when they're overstimulated. So when we have a heightened sense of excitement, perhaps we have a situation that can compose and be quite anxious, and we might become a bit too high levels of anxiety, then that over arousal might impact on our performance. As I said before, that these individuals, they tend to look at individual sports, but introverts, what they're good at is that they can self-motivate themselves. So they don't need to be motivated by other people. They have those sort of predetermined, that self-determination factor, that really kind of ensures that they're quite stubborn in their ability. They're quite resilient to try and make sure that they complete the task on hand. Again, I want you to pause the video here. Can you think of any sports that might suit this kind of personality type in terms of introverts? Have a go. Okay, so sports you may have come up with there. You've got an example of canoeing. You can see in the picture that would be one example of an introvert type of sport, or suited for introverts, should I say. Other examples may have included things like running, cycling, okay, where we've got those individual pursuits. We need to be determined to try and finish off that race, for example, and finish off that run, for example. Okay, so those could be examples of introverted sports. If we look at extrovert next, so an extrovert is someone that is generally quite sociable, they're quite active, they're very talkative, they're quite outgoing in regards to their personality, and these are normally people that are associated quite regularly with team sports. Okay, a lot of extroverts will tend to be leaders. Okay, they'll be the ones that will be quite approachable, but they'll also be quite active. They'll speak their mind somewhat, and they'll have very good communication skills. These individuals tend to need high levels of arousal to perform better. So they often kind of lack concentration. They might seek out exciting, stimulating situations, and they can get bored quite easily. As it says there, they tend to enjoy interaction with others. They are quite sociable people. They get sportingly aroused by others. Okay, they're enthusiastic, but they can get prone to boredom when they're isolated. Okay, so extroverts really seek out those thrill, those exciting elements of performance. Again, can you just write down, pause the video here, any sports that suit this personality type of extrovert? Okay, so hopefully here you've come up with lots of different team sporting examples. So things like netball, basketball, rugby, football, all of those, even cricket to a certain extent, but cricket at times can be a little bit individual. So, cricket will be a combination, I suppose, of introvert and extrovert. But ultimately, the other sports that I've mentioned before, okay, all of those are very team-based activities, so are going to require quite high levels of extrovert people. Okay, exam station next, really in terms of finishing off this task. So again, pause the video here and just see if you can answer that question. Explain what sports would suit the following personality type and why. Okay, so you're explaining which sports will suit an introvert and an extrovert, but also try and explain and justify your answers. Okay, off you go. If you need any additional help, then obviously I'll put the differentiated tasks on here in regards to extra sentence starters. Okay, let's look at let's look at the mark scheme, in fact, really for this question, based on what you've written down. So you could have mentioned about the fact that introverts tend to play, as we said, individual sports, which require sports such as high levels of concentration. They need fine skill control, things like precision. So things like archery, clay pigeon shooting, as we've mentioned in the past before, okay, would have all been kind of quite relevant for these type of sports. They need low levels of arousal. So we could have mentioned things like golf, and that had the picture of Rory McIlroy there. Okay, golf is a very individual sport. Okay, requires obviously low levels of arousal in order for us to compete and perform well. For extroverts, remember it's the opposite, yeah. So they tend to play sports that are quite fast paced. They need some concentration, of course, to do, but their concentration levels on the whole will be relatively low. Okay. These kind of team sporting activities tend to use gross skills quite often. Okay, so big muscle movements. So sports you may have mentioned there, football or any other team sport would have given you that suitable kind of sporting example for this topic. And finally, for teachers, in terms of teaching and learning strategies, okay, often I get the students here to work in pairs and use maybe mini whiteboards, okay, to describe their own personality, and then get them paired up to describe the other person's personality. You obviously need to make sure you create a kind of stable and safe environment here for them to do this task maturely. And ultimately, you might also get the students to do some doodling. So can they draw their own personality, and can they draw the different personality types using images only, and that might help them discover some new sort of describing and descriptive words for each personality type. Okay, so best of luck with this task. Hopefully that was fairly useful for you. Good luck.